Pollution Control District Office. The Advisory Committee, we have members participating in person at our offices in Fresno, Bakersfield, and Modesto. Staff will do the best, and we as a board members will do our best to the public in participation that are by Zoom or by webcast. Before we begin, there are some important deadline or things that you need to, first is to definitely turn off your phones or put them onto aircraft mode so we don't have people taking calls of ordering hamburgers or whatever, which is good, but and during the meeting, participants will be placed on mute until the chair executive recognizes and whatever the issues are. And each issue will be announced before, so the people that are on Zoom or by webcast will know what item number we are on. And the clerk, of course, of the board will proceed, and we call the meeting to order. So call the roll, please.
Okay, good morning. Mr. Cunha?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Horrell? Mr. Hostel?
Here.
Ms. Lopes? Mr. Savage?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts? Mr. Sanders?
Here.
Ms. Deming?
Here.
Ms. Nebecker?
Here.
Mr. Lieba?
I am here.
Thank you. Ms. Agers? Mr. Helm? Ms. Fast? Mr. Robertson? Mr. Cryer?
Here.
Ms. Morrow? Ms. Matthews? Mr. Troost?
Here.
Mr. Delgadillo? Mr. Gutierrez? Mr. Cantu?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Smith? Mr. Medeiros?
Here.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Again, before I want to thank all of the CAC members that are continually attending all the meetings in all the 3 different offices, and thank you for all your participation, everybody. It's great that we can have the 3 different areas and try to get through our agenda items and having action items to having the support and the votes that are necessary. So again, thank you. At this time, we'll go to item number 3, approval of the minutes from the August 1st meeting. And what I'll do is, excuse me, I will go to the north and ask if there's any corrections or amendments or changes that the CAC board members have. So in the north. Hearing none, let me go to the south. Any corrections to the minutes? Okay, let's bring it back here to the central. Any of the CAC members? Okay, then let's open it up to the public. The public in the north, any person on Zoom or in person in the north?
There are no members of the public in the north.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the south.
No public comment in the south.
Great, thank you. Let's bring it back here to the central.
Any members of the public would like to comment on the minutes? Seeing none and no online comments.
All right, great. So we'll move forward and approve the minutes as presented to us for the August 1st of 23. Thank you. Let's go to item number 4. At this time, the public is invited to make comments on items that are not before this body to be discussing today or voting on. And at that time, you will be allowed to present items that are not on the agenda in either one of the 3 offices or via by Zoom or any type of phone system. So let's go to the north. Any of the public comments or by Zoom in the north?
No public comments in the north.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the south.
No public comment in the south.
Great. Let's bring it to the central.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Okay, great. At this time, I'd like for us to take in all 3 offices a moment of silence for the passing of our United States Senator Dianne Feinstein. This morning, her body lies in state in San Francisco in City Hall. So if we can take a few seconds, please, or a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. She will be greatly missed. She was a champion. In '93, some of you weren't even born. You were twinkles in the eyes of people. But she was probably the most strongest senator that we had to work with this Valley Air District, the ARB, and EPA, and USDA on air qualities, and to do the SARMAP and the Seacoast study and all of that. And even to get Edwards Air Force Base involved in the studies, that was a first. Kelly and a few folks and Samir and others that were part of that little research project for years. She led the charge and believed in research. Research would show us what direction to go in for all industries, not just agriculture, but all industries. So she will be greatly missed. Thursday night, she did cast her last vote to keep the government open, and then went home and where her daughter was in Washington, D.C. That evening, she had passed away. But again, a senator to the very end at 90 years old, a very strong woman, a very professional lady, a very eloquent lady. And again, like I said, she will be greatly missed. So at this time, I will go to the executive director, Mr. Samir, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, CAC members. Great to see everybody here, and I hope you're all doing well. First, I wanted to just welcome some new members that are here. I know Ashley is here for sure. Hi, good morning, Ashley. I wanted to welcome you to the CAC. I see you. You're physically in front of me, and I look forward to working with you and getting to know your perspectives, and then certainly speak for all of us. Just excited to have you on the CAC. And Nick DeHart is the Madera County Environmental Alternate. I don't think he's, or is he? Oh, Nick. So you're okay. Yes, Nick. Nice to see you here in person as well, and obviously also very interested in getting to know you and hearing your perspectives as well. It's really great to have this volunteer, but very important committee weighing in on the various air quality issues. So really appreciate all of you for your time being here. And it's just great to have, not only the primaries here, but also, alternates that are here, and all that perspective is welcome and very much appreciated the time. Good morning. Hi, Casey. Yes, I wanted just a couple of quick updates for the CAC that I wanted to bring to your attention. These are all actually some positive news and also just kind of a flag for you as well. I wanted to first to share with you that the Air District did receive a national award from the Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies. They're one of the big national air quality management associations. We received a Best Practices Award for the district's Healthier Living Schools program for 2023. So that's a very big accomplishment, a source of pride, for the Valley's work in really working with our schools here to look at air quality and keep our kids and teachers and administrators protected and involved. And we've worked really hard in this region to actually build that program up. It's actually grown into, there's been a statewide effort to also kind of emulate some of the things that we've done in the Valley as far as informing schools when air quality levels are higher and having recommendations, the activity recommendations. All of these concepts were actually developed right here in the Valley and have now become broader across the state and even across the country. So that's something that we were very proud to receive. We'll be doing a little bit of media on that and just sharing that success story so we can really highlight the hard work of the schools, working with us and others to make that happen. The other thing I wanted to share with you is the annual report, the 2022-23 annual report is ready. It went to our board at our last board meeting for feedback. It will be soon published to our webpage and will also be printed. It's available in English and Spanish. It's a really great resource for trying to take all of these really dense issues often that we work on here, air quality management issues, and just reporting in a more accessible format to the public what is going on what's happened this last year, the various programs and projects, and just where the air quality is. It's a very colorful, very kind of, a lot of graphical representation of what's going on. So very happy with that report. The CAC has always been really great about, trying to share it with your constituents, get it out to as many folks as possible, and just really help continue to get the message across in terms of the effort that's going on, the hard work that's going on in the Valley to reduce air pollution and continue to improve the Valley's air quality. So that is going to be very soon published. Jamie and Heather later will, in their report, can cover a bit more on the details of that. But we're happy to make that available, by the way, if you need some copies or need more accessibility to that, just let me know, and we're happy to work with you on that. I also wanted to flag for you and make sure that it's on your calendars. We have confirmed now with our board the upcoming governing board study session. So this is a Brown Act compliant 2-day public meeting that the board has where the board talks in a more relaxed setting than our boardroom here, in a bit more of a relaxed setting, a number of items of strategic interest to the board and the Valley with respect to air quality. That's confirmed for the 29th and 30th up in Modesto. So for those of you members up north, it'll be a little bit of an easier, hopefully you can all, well, hopefully everybody can make it to the meeting. It'll be accessible, hopefully to everybody. It's in the Valley, and so we do move that location around, and so that's going to be the location downtown at the DoubleTree Hotel. I also want to share with you some of the topics that we talked about the agenda at our last board meeting, and wanted to share that list with you really quick here. And hopefully you can all help contribute to these discussions as they unfold during the meeting. There's going to be an update on the wildfire prevention and response strategy. There's going to be a discussion on funding and outreach opportunities for reducing firework air quality emissions. So that's the kind of item that may also have some fireworks associated with it, because that's always an interesting discussion to have. I'm glad that I got a little smile out of you, Dennis. I appreciate that. There's an item on the ongoing community engagement efforts. This is a huge priority of the board, just continuing to look for ways to work with various communities at a community level and expanding those efforts. So there's going to be an update on that and some ideas for how to continue to grow that effort. There's an item on continued efforts to partner with Valley Agriculture to reduce nut harvest emissions. So this is an area that is of a lot of interest to the board and the Valley. There's a lot of great positive work going on with Valley Agriculture to look at technology and a lot of funding that we've been able to pull together recently, and even more funding that we'd like to see going into some of the newer technology that's becoming available. There's an item on climate initiatives and potential opportunities in the San Joaquin Valley. There's quite a bit of effort in that area right now to take advantage, whether it's sustainable agriculture or other lower carbon pathways. There's been quite a bit of work going on in the valley to leverage those efforts. There is a really interesting item that I know has been of a lot of interest to the CAC, which is heavy-duty vehicle and equipment infrastructure challenges and opportunities. So this is a big deal in the valley and throughout the state with the various mandates that are coming up, and looking at what does it really take to deal with to actually make these transitions happen when you look at it from the variety of facets, whether it's the vehicles, whether it's also on the infrastructure side. There's an item on new information systems technologies to improve customer service and efficiency. We've been doing quite a bit of work here at the district to do various transitions into newer software and all with an eye towards service. And so we want to just kind of profile and highlight some of those efforts. There's a few other items that are kind of standing items that are a tradition of the study session. An update on our work culture, the STAR work culture, which stands for service, teamwork, attitude, and respect. We take that very seriously here, where everything we do is with an eye towards providing exceptional customer service. So we like to talk about that program and where we are with it, and any ideas for continuing to keep it fresh and to keep it ever evolving from a continuous improvement perspective. We're going to get updates from CARB and EPA. So last year, we were very fortunate to actually have the chair of CARB, Leanne Randolph, and the head of Region 9, Martha Guzman, were actually both at our study session to provide updates on very high-level discussion about what's going on with both CARB and EPA. So I think we'll be looking for some level of engagement again from CARB and EPA. And then lastly, an update from the District Employees Association. We have a very good staff here, just an excellent staff who works very hard day in, day out to serve the public. So engagement with the staff. So that's kind of a summary of the major items on the agenda, but I wanted to make sure, most importantly, that you had this on your calendars, and look forward to seeing as many of you there as possible to help support that process. And so with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you and CAC members for any questions or comments.
The date is scheduled for
29th and 30th
okay.
of November.
29th and 30th. Okay,
Yes.
great. Also, we have some new members that have arrived.
Yes, through the chair, Ms. Austin Tibbetts and Ms. Morrow are in attendance.
Great. Welcome aboard again. Appreciate everybody. Again, all the alternates, all of you, as Samir said, welcome. It's great to have that type of representation and being a part of our community, how important the CAC is to these communities and getting information back to your organizations, to the communities upon what things go on here and the importance of the CAC has with the board. And again, I want to thank everybody that's taken the time to continue to be in presence in all three offices. And I want to thank the staff, definitely in all three offices, for all their help and working with the board members, all of them, alternates as well as the main primary. All right, let's go to any questions from the members of the board in the south of Samir on what his presentation is. Boy, it's quiet in the north then. Okay, let's go to the south. Any board members there of comments from Samir in the south? Okay, let's bring it back here to the central. Any comments?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So
Your mic. Thank you.
who's included in that conference or those meetings?
Well, I'm sorry, I should have shared a little bit more background on yeah. So it's actually a board meeting, so as many of the board members will be there. So it's actually an official board meeting. It just happens to be located in a little bit more of a casual setting, but also different than I would say the average board meeting. There's a number of different items of strategic sort of interest. So it's a little bit less of the the regular kind of items and more of some of these types of items, where we actually try to bring in some outside folks too, to, depending on the item, some of these may involve, other agencies, on wildfires, we're probably going to have, some of the forest, the land management representatives, hopefully state and federal, talking about some of their efforts. So we do try to, it's a longer meeting too. It's about a day and a half. It covers 2 days, and try to have some deep dives into some of these key issues. So a bit different, but it's a Brown Act meeting. It's a board meeting with public commenting available, as these items work their way through.
Thank you.
Will we have,
Go ahead, please.
will we have Zoom access if we wish to? We will follow?
Yeah, traditionally that has not had Zoom access. Sometimes these meetings are held, so they're held off-site. So there's already right out the gate, logistical challenges with that. Often the meeting's been held at Bass Lake or other locations that yeah. So it was lastly held at Wonder Valley near Sanger. That was last year. So yeah, but traditionally this is an in-person meeting.
And I apologize for being late and not knowing the location of this meeting.
Yeah, so it's going to be at downtown Modesto at the DoubleTree, November 29th and 30th.
Can I suggest next year Pismo Beach and we all be invited?
I think Pismo Beach is a suggestion. Fresno South, as some like to call it.
Any other comments? So let me go to the public at this time. In the north, any of the public comments for Samir?
There are no public comments in the north.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go to the south.
No public comment in the south.
Great, let me bring it back here to the central. Any public comment?
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment or question?
How about online?
None online.
Okay, great,
Thank you.
Samir, I just want to make some comments about this, and all of the CAC members definitely are invited. Every one of you are invited to it. They are a day and a half. It is really valuable. And the sense of being valuable is to meet with the staff one-on-one and stuff, and the board during the various breaks and discussions. And we've done a lot of great things, I think, at those study sessions. They've been very, very valuable. And
Mr. Chair, just one quick thing on logistics. So they do typically start later in the morning on that first day to allow for travel, and so that's just another a little bit more of a detail in that piece too, just for planning purposes. And then it'll start a bit earlier on the second day, and then finish in the afternoon on that second. So it starts later in the morning, first day into the afternoon for basically almost a full day, but not quite early in the morning, and then the next day a bit earlier, and then until it takes in the afternoon on the second day, just for planning. But if you have any questions logistically and all that, just feel free to give me a call. Happy to share even more as you think about attending.
Yes. Well, I'll have the staff will send out, Jamie Holt will send out a flyer to all the CAC members with the location,
yes,
the
we can do that,
address, and the time on the first day start and the second day.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, that'll help. And that way you have that on. Also, I think the most important thing is to have tremendous cookies during the breaks. It is really good. So again, Samir, thank you and all the staff for putting this together with the board. We look forward going to Modesto. And I think it'll be a great event. Again, there was no public comment here in the Fresno office. So let's go to item number 7, Emily. Going to go over the attainment plan and rules.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Hope you're all doing good this morning. Thank you for having me here. My name is Emily Nealand, and I'm the program manager of our air quality planning team. Here today to provide you with an update on our plan and rules development projects. I will also be providing a presentation in a couple of items, which will go a little bit deeper into some of these. So if I'm brief, that is why. So first, we are developing in partnership with CARB our updated attainment plan for the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard, which I'll provide more information in the presentation. We are also working with CARB to develop a contingency package for the 2008 8-hour ozone standard, and the development of this package will continue through 2023. In regards to our rules, most recently at the September governing board hearing, the board adopted amendments to District Rule 8051, which is our rule for open areas, which is incorporating a contingency measure for the PM 2.5 standards consistent with our contingency strategy that was taken to the board in May. The package has been submitted to CARB for transmittal to EPA. And then lastly, I just wanted to note that we hosted a public workshop on September 29th to present our draft amendments to District Rule 4402, crude oil production sumps. We did publish the draft rule language ahead of the workshop on our website, and we plan to take the proposed amendments to our board by the end of the year. So that concludes my updates. Again, I will be providing an additional presentation that touches on some of our plan-related projects. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Emily. Let me go to the north, CAC members. Any questions of Emily on her report? All right, let's go to the south, CAC members. This is item number 7. All right, let's bring it here to the central. Any CAC member comments for Emily? All right, let's go to the public in the north. Any comments?
No public comment in the north.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the south.
No public comment in the south.
Great, let's bring it back here to the central. Any public comments?
There's no indication of public comment in person or online.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Emily, very
Perfect.
much.
Thank you.
Let's go to item number 8, verbal report from the California Air Resources Board, CARB. Laura. Number 8.
She should be showing up as a panelist right now. Thank you.
Good morning.
Laura, are you there?
Yes,
Oh,
I
great.
am. Sorry, apologies for the delay. Good morning, Mr. Chair and CAC members. This is Laura Carr. I'm an air pollution specialist here at CARB, and I'll be providing an update on actions taken by the CARB board, or rather items heard by the CARB board at our September hearing. We did not have any action items. There was just the one item, which was an informational update for the board on the low carbon fuel standard. So the board heard an update from CARB staff on major concepts that are under consideration for an upcoming low carbon fuel standard or LCFS rulemaking. The LCFS regulation, first adopted in 2009, was developed to reduce the carbon intensity of transportation fuels used in California, and it currently requires a 20% statewide reduction in carbon intensity from 2010 levels by 2030. The LCFS program supports the transition to zero emission vehicle technology, while also displacing fossil fuels with low carbon alternatives in legacy internal combustion engine vehicles. And since the beginning of the program, CARB has nearly tripled the quantity of low carbon fuels used in transportation. So CARB staff is currently developing regulatory changes to the LCFS program in response to recent climate legislation and also CARB's 2022 scoping plan update. CARB anticipates board consideration of the proposed amendments to the LCFS program in the first quarter of 2024. And that's all that I have for an update today. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Laura. At this time, I'll go to the north, CAC members. Any comments or questions for Laura? And this is item number 8. Okay, hearing none, let's go to the south. Any CAC comments at this time? Laura.
John Sanders.
Here.
John
Pardon?
Sanders. John
Please
Sanders
go
from
ahead.
the South. The presentation brought on, seems like we keep ignoring this elephant in the room, that there's no way all this is gonna happen in the time frame that we have. Is there a backup plan? Is there a time when someone says, well, I guess we're gonna move this out a little further, or do we have to go spend, in my case, we would spend somewhere in the vicinity of $9 million so far. And now, but there's still, the PG&E says, it's not likely you're gonna get that much juice at your shop. And I just don't see how, without just shutting down business in California, this, we're gonna get to a point. I mean, at this point, California has done their part. It's the federal government who hasn't done their part. What's our options on this besides what we already have, like legacy, things like that? We're already doing our legacy and buying the things we need, but I mean, when is someone gonna say uncle and say, wait, hold on, we gotta just put the brakes a little bit until we get a little better technology? Because I read the technology, information that came from Affinity Group, who we buy a lot of trucks from. They're not ready for it. They could put a shop together. They're spending millions of dollars like we are, but there's no way that this is going to come together. I don't know when someone says uncle. I mean, I guess we could all just go get our gold bars and move to another state. I don't think that's what we want to do, though. It's an opinion, and I wonder if we're thinking about that option. And that's all.
Thank you. Laura, give you a chance if you want to respond, or
Sure, thanks. Yes, I guess I'll just highlight or reinforce the point that I made earlier, which is that based on the update that I provided, the LCFS program is going to be working on proposed amendments in the first quarter of 2024. So there would, of course, be a public process for that. So I suppose I would invite Mr. Sanders and anyone else with comments to participate in that public process. As always, if the CAC is interested in having folks from that program, from the LCFS program, come make a presentation, I'd be happy to help organize that as well.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add one bit,
Please.
just as more of this from a process perspective. My understanding is that the hearing that Laura was summarizing, there was, I think, well over 100 public commenters, and I think there's a memorialization of that meeting, and just if anybody's interested in seeing, that how that went and the variety of perspectives that were brought in. I just wanted to highlight that I think the meeting went well into the. I'm not even sure when it finished, but I think there was probably, I'm guessing it was a very long meeting just because I think there was a lot of feedback provided at that meeting. Just wanted to highlight that in case you're interested in following that process. Thanks, Laura.
Okay,
If I may respond,
please.
Johnson. We could say what we want about the meetings, but we had a meeting based on the sump, what the parameters are on sumps just a couple days ago. And as I'm looking at that meeting, I have customers that come to us who are buying leases and fields that the other people didn't care, and they're saying, oh, well, it's not our problem anymore. And we're going from, one level of 0.35 to 0.05. And I'm watching my customer go, how am I going to get to this point when I just took control of this land 4 weeks ago? So it's always we have as something, and those 100 people, if I'm 1 in the 100 people, my voice doesn't get heard, or if I'm 10 in the 100 people. So I'm going to rely on the low carbon fuel standard discussion in 2024 to try and do my pushback. That's what I see as my moving forward plan.
Okay, any other comments in the South from CAC members?
Yes, this is Orchard Crier.
Please go ahead.
The question I have, you said 20% reduction over a period of time. What costs, is there a monetary value to that? What's that cost the businesses and the taxpayers in order to achieve that 20%? Is that going to be in the packet or whatever in the future we'll bring it to the board?
Yes, thank you for the question. So I'm not staff working on this regulation, so I don't have an answer just at the tip of my fingertips, but I'm happy to look into that and get back to you with a response. But as you're indicating, I would imagine that would be part of the documentation as the board looks at proposed changes moving forward in early 2024.
Thank you, and I agree with John. It's like a backroom talk when we talk from the different businesses and stuff, and also within the cities and we're talking, is that they're talking about, like John was saying, they're moving out of California because it's so restrictive and stuff. And it sounds like every day you read in the papers and stuff that another big corporation closing down and moving to Texas, which I know Governor Abbott's pretty happy about it, but I don't like to see that happen. And we just gotta be careful of what decisions that we make and what cost is gonna be and how what's gonna affect. You get the biggest bang for the dollar as far as what we're gonna do in order to achieve the ultimate goal. But sometimes we have to wait a little bit for technology to catch up with some of the things that we're trying to do. And that's my concern, and that's a talk that's going around, and I'm just expressing it to you, and thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments in the South from the CAC? Samir, when we get done with the board, then we'll come back. I think Laura had made a comment, and I would like for us to think about that. Maybe we have a presentation from CARB here in the Valley, even if it's at the CAC in December, but maybe before, is that maybe we can, so I want to bring that back as a discussion, so make sure I don't forget that. But let me come back here to the Central CAC members, Mr. Williams.
I just had one quick question. So under the public workshop, potential amendments to the cap and trade regulation, if I go into your website and then I click on the more information, will it list out all of the potential amendments to the cap and trade regulation that ARB is looking at implementing?
Yeah, again, thanks for the question. And again, I'm afraid I have the same answer, which is that I'm not staff involved on that particular item. I can check, I can follow that link and see if there is that information there. And if it isn't there, I can follow up with the appropriate CARB staff to make sure that you do get an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, let me, Samir, I'll come back after I go to the public, and then we can have a discussion with Laura and your staff. In the North, is there any public comment on item number 8 for Laura in the public?
No public comment in the North.
All right, great. Let's go to the South. Public comment for Laura Carr, item number 8.
No public comment in the South.
Okay, let's bring it back here to the Central. Any public comment at this time for Laura on item 8?
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? There's
Anybody
none.
on Zoom or nothing? Okay.
No online
All right,
comments.
let's come back, Samir, to the discussion of what has been stated by some of the board members. And it is a concern. There's no doubt, because number 9 is going to fall into that discussion as well when we get done here. Is there a possibility that maybe Laura can work with that department that has had this discussion, and being that they're going to move this to 24 year, that maybe we have a presentation from their staff here to go over this, so everybody kind of has an idea of, being that the meeting that happened at CARB was huge, and I think some folks in the audience here, I think, attended that meeting. But is that possible, Samir, to do with Laura? Are we able to do such a thing, to get your staff to come down here and do something like a 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock or something?
I will, Laura, I'll defer to you on the possibility of having, some kind of a local presentation on LCFS. I mean, so you're talking about something outside of a CAC meeting agenda item?
I think so, because
so that's something that Laura is going to have to talk to her team, I would imagine. Laura, you can respond to that as far as what, how you want to handle the evaluation of that, and maybe getting back to the CAC on that. But within the CAC, certainly, I'm sure Laura could also think of options to continue, bringing that team to talk about so we're talking about the LCFS. Just want to be very clear.
Yeah,
there's a lot of different things that are going on with CARB, but
8, yes.
So, Laura, if you wanted to respond on just a public engagement side of it, and whether you think that would be something you could perhaps look at and maybe get back. I'm not sure, but also other CSC members may want to weigh in just in terms of your interest in sort of how you want to express your interest in CARB providing some kind of answers on what's going on with LCFS. But Laura, if you wanted to take a stab at that, I'll turn it to you.
And before Laura comments, Samir, to the comment, is that we would have ARB presented to the CAC, being we don't hold a meeting in November, correct, or do we? Do we have a meeting in November? Okay, so the next time we meet would be December. So absolutely have a presentation to the CAC, no doubt about it. But I think what John and others are commenting on, I think there is many others that would want to talk about this. And so that's the only reason I stated that maybe we would have a opportunity, because of the hearings. Most people can't go to Sacramento, can't go to Los Angeles, but certainly CARB could come here and do a presentation so that there's input. So the business side, the people that are going to be impacted by this would have that opportunity. But definitely for the CAC in December, absolutely. Absolutely, I think would be important, because they're going to pick a date. If in fact it happens, and Laura says it's maybe a possibility, everybody's not going to be able to pick that date. So, okay, great. But at least at the CAC in December, we would have that opportunity. So, Laura, you're being thrown 2 items to you. I've thrown 2 items to Samir, but really his main thing is item number 2 that I brought up, and that's the CAC. So, comment, Laura, if you can, or.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I registered both of those requests. I think a presentation before the CAC in December should definitely be doable. And I'll also convey the request for a public workshop. It sounds like there's interest in an evening public workshop in the Valley, hosted by CARB staff. I can certainly convey that request, and then I suppose we can work together with the district to nail down specifics as far as location, date, and time, and so forth.
Samir, okay?
Yeah, we can certainly, if that's amenable to CARB, and we'd be happy to work with them on location and date and all that. Happy to.
Okay, great. Mr. Williams?
Okay, so I was actually able to answer my own question, and so for the record, the materials, workshop materials will not be posted until noon today, in order to be it says, given the existing market and the fact that some topics may influence current market behavior, CARB will exercise due diligence to ensure that all market influencing information is made available to all stakeholders at the same time. So those items will not be available until noon today for the meeting. At that point, there is a link that'll take you to that information once they post it. Thank you.
Okay, great. I did the public right on this item. Okay, great. Samir, thank you. Laura, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's go to item number 9, CARB, on the impending deadlines for this very important issue called trucks and bus rule, upon the issue where all of the trucks under 2010 will no longer be able to operate as of January 1 of 2024, unless they did some major work to providing a PM and a NOx filter, and in most cases was not a workable solution. So item number 9, and I believe it's going to be Gerald, is that correct, from CARB?
That's correct.
Okay, young man, you have the floor, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if my camera is on, but can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, and we see you're sharing, I'm using the technology words, you're sharing your information with us.
All right.
And
perfect.
we see it online.
Fantastic. So my name is Gerald Baruman. I manage the on-road compliance and reporting assistance section of the Mobile Source Control Division of the California Air Resources Board. And today I'm here to give a brief presentation on the truck and bus regulation, which the truck and bus regulation, it was adopted in 2008 and implementation began that year as well. The reason for the regulation was to help us meet our federal air quality standards and to reduce exposure to toxic air contaminants to the community. So this regulation affects any diesel-powered vehicles operating in California, regardless of whether they're commercial or privately owned vehicles, regardless of registration status with DMV, as long as they're operating in California, diesel-powered, and have a gross vehicle weight rating over 14,000 pounds. There was some phase-in options available for this regulation in the early phases. So there was particulate matter filters that allowed for compliance between 2012 and 2016 for heavier vehicles. And then starting in 2015 through 2023, that's when the model engine year upgrades to a 2010 or newer model year engine began. We at CARB assisted the affected vehicle owners by providing public outreach. We established a diesel hotline for affected vehicle owners to be able to call in toll-free and get compliance assistance. And we provided funding and incentives through the local air districts. If we go to the next slide, we did include some flexibility to the regulation when it was early, like I said, early in the implementation process. It included provisions that assisted vehicle owners, and they were phased in provisions that worked through 2022, and they included flexibility for small fleets of fleets of 1 to 3 vehicles. Agricultural fleets had some mileage restrictions that were higher than the typical low use mileage restrictions, as well as phase in filter options. Construction trucks also had some phased in compliance options, as well as log trucks. And again, I mentioned earlier that there was a phase in for the particulate matter filter installation provisions. There were some other provisions, but those were the main ones that were applicable here. Now, the final deadline for this regulation was back in January of 2023, the beginning of this year. So the final deadline has already passed. At that point, all vehicles had to have a 2010 or newer model year engine in order to comply with this regulation, or they had to already be using one of the 2 remaining flexibility options, which are the low use vehicles, which are vehicles that travel less than 1,000 miles per year in California, or vehicles that are operated exclusively in NOx exempt areas of the state. Now, to qualify for those remaining flexibility options, like I mentioned, the vehicles must already be reported and using the option, or if a vehicle is purchased, they have 30 days within purchase date to opt into one of these options. In order to continue using, now these 2 options do not have an expiration date. They can be used as long as the vehicle continues to operate. However, annual reporting and mileage restrictions do apply. If either one of those 2 are not followed, then that vehicle no longer qualifies for that flexibility option. Now, in 2017, the California State Legislature passed the Road Repair and Accountability Act, which is also known as Senate Bill 1. And in this act, it required the Department of Motor Vehicles to deny registration or renewal, deny registration renewal or transfer to any diesel fuel vehicles that are not in compliance with the truck and bus regulation. So vehicles, the CARB works closely with the DMV, and we provide information on a nightly basis to the DMV that includes any information for compliant vehicles with the truck and bus regulation. So any vehicles that do not comply with the truck and bus regulation, per the legislative act, cannot renew or transfer their registration with DMV. Now, going forward, medium and heavy duty vehicles that are operating in California, they might be subject to other rules and regulations. So you do need to be aware of what's happening, such as the Clean Truck Check program. And that program, the reporting for that program begins in October 2023, as well as the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation, which was just passed. And that only applies to vehicles that visit ports or rail yards, or to fleets of 50 vehicles or more that have vehicles, 8,500 pounds GVWR or more, fleets of 50 vehicles or more that are vehicles of 8,500 pounds GVWR, or fleets that have a gross annual income over $50 million, and have at least one vehicle over 8,500 pounds GVWR. Now, in conclusion, the truck and bus regulation has been one of the biggest success stories for CARB in protecting public health, because it did reduce emissions from diesel engines through the replacement of the older engines that didn't have the emission technology that the newer engines have. Now, this particular we see this particularly in our disadvantaged communities. And that we see in our disadvantaged communities that we had large number of diesel vehicles that would idle in those communities or travel through those communities. So it's very important that we made advancements in reducing those emissions. And again, as our success is attributed to the effective implementation of the regulation, which included working with the regulated communities, providing financial support, conducting research, outreach, and then providing compliance assistance, as well as equitable enforcement of the rule. Now, we do need to continue implementing the rule, because these diesel engines are still out there and they still remain a major source of health risks to our disadvantaged communities. So we do need to implement the regulation going forward, even after the final deadline that passed. And if you have any more questions, or if you want more information on the truck and bus regulation or any of the other regulations that I brought up, I did provide links to our web pages here, the truck and bus, the Clean Truck Check, Advanced Clean Fleets, as well as to our truck stop page, which is a all-inclusive page where you can go there and it will direct you to any of the 3 links above it, as well as to information on funding assistance, or where you can go for more compliance assistance as well. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or comments at this time.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair. Appreciate.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
just a comment. When we get these, I find it, I guess I'm picky. I find it awkward to be going like this the whole time. Is there a way we could have, I don't know what's that called. I know when I work with my secretary, she knows which way, so that it's easily, I don't know if anybody disagrees with me, but if that's a possibility. No, I have no trouble. But if we could just fold it instead of turning it like this, it would be easier. Thank you.
Okay. Gerald, you're still online, right? You're still on?
I am here, yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. All right, thank you again. Let me go to the CAC board in the north. Comments on item number 9, Gerald's presentation on the bus and truck rule. Comments, please, if there's any from the CAC in the north.
Gerald, this is Chris Savage. Thanks for the presentation. On the Advanced Clean Fleet Program, I'm sure that CARB is well aware of the complexity of trying to determine the long-term compliance with that program for facilities. It's not exactly intuitive without a tremendous amount of effort to determine which of the approaches needs to be taken to ensure you're going to be in compliance over time. I guess from a CAC standpoint, I would continue to recommend outreach and additional communication on that program to as many of the areas around the state as you can get to. And as the program gets a little longer in the tooth and we start to see how many fleets out there are able to easily and meaningfully comply with that program, it would be good to feed that information back to us so we have a better feel for how many of the existing fleets out there are maintaining compliance based on the schedule that's been laid out. So that's my longer term request for you. Thanks.
Thank you. And we are definitely working on our outreach program, and we will be getting out there and providing in-person outreach, as well as we are creating fact sheets and video modules to post on our webpage, as you know, and anything we can do to help with the transition into the ACF regulation. We definitely are working on that.
If I could make one more comment, then I would take a look at what you're preparing and try and get some more real-time feedback from those that are looking at the tools you're putting out there, because I don't know that they are being well understood. And I think it would be useful to get some real-time feedback from the smaller fleets that are out there and maybe the slightly less knowledgeable folks on CARB programs, because I don't know that they're fully understanding what is ultimately going to be required here. So again, seek some additional feedback even on the tools that you're creating, okay?
Very good. Thank you so much for the comment.
Okay, any other CAC member in the north? Comments for Gerald? Okay, hearing none, let's go to the south. Any CAC member comments?
Mr. Chairman, it's Les Clark down south.
Yes, please.
Looking at the slides under conclusion, as is normal, they bring in, particularly in our disadvantaged communities. And the gentleman brings up health risks. Where's the studies? I've asked for studies from the environmental community forever. I never get them. I'd like to see what kind of risk assessment that you have available. And we're talking about a tremendous amount of change here. And for one, I live in a disadvantaged community. So I want to know where all the information is coming from. That's not a real hard question. I'd like to see a study.
Yes, there's thank you for the comment and for the question. We do have all the studies that we used when CARB was putting together the rulemaking and going through the rulemaking process for the truck and bus regulation. They conducted all the required environmental studies in order to determine and to prove that this was a need and it would create a lowered risk reduction. So that is all on our webpage, and I can definitely provide those links to Laura to provide provide you all. But it is all linked on our webpage, on our rulemaking webpage, so that we can provide that information.
Well, I appreciate that, but in those days I was also part of the discussion, and I didn't receive any information. It's always good to say, I've got a study that proves that, and we don't ever get to see a copy of it. So whatever you can do, I'm getting old, I want to see it.
Yes, sir. We will definitely I will get that information over to Laura, and I'll also include some links to the study.
I don't care about Laura, I care about getting it to me.
Yeah, well, Laura's my liaison to you, so I'll make sure that we get it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Orto Crier.
Please.
I have probably a question, and probably I'll probably piggyback to you on by your answer, because I'm kind of confused a little bit. What is a disadvantaged city? Is it based on population? Is it based on income? Is it based on ethnic race, or what's a disadvantaged city? And for myself, because I'm kind of new at this on the board here, because sometimes people don't know they're poor until somebody tells them. But I'd like to know, and I'll probably answer a question back to you on it. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I am not the expert on that part, but I think maybe the general answer is yes, that it does involve economics and location. But I'll see if we can't, if I can't get that information, you know, what that entails and get that over to you as well.
Okay, because a lot of people in the minorities, you know, a lot of them own trucks, or they only own maybe one, maybe two, and it's gonna impact them more so than the bigger companies, because they can't afford to adapt to some of the regulations and stuff, so it'll force them to go out of business or move out, but that's kind of basically what I was kind of leading to. I appreciate your comment, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, John Sanders. May I speak?
Please go ahead.
So I'm thinking about how this is playing out. And so we have studies that say how things were then. Has there been a study to say how things are now? Because now that we're down 93% in 2022, and I don't have a 2023 diagram in this building, but we're down 93%. I would think things would have changed a little bit to maybe not, I mean, I have on my block, there's 17 diesel pickups, and they're not big diesel pickups. They're brand new Duramax diesel pickups. They're nice. They don't smell. They're not blowing black smoke. And then I went and bought probably seven or eight diesel trucks because they were the Duramax, real nice, clean emission for our supervisors. And we have those. So, but now you're going after the personal diesels, you're going after the diesels from the big companies. And if you really want to, here's what sad part is, my partners that I work with were in here as we watched this in the going forward slide. It says, medium and heavy duty vehicles operating in California may be subject to other rules and regulations. We're already reporting. We're reporting everything we can report. We're going legacy. We're doing everything we can. But it says fleets of 50 vehicles or more over 8,500 pounds, I'm screwed. But then I go with the gross annual income. We're having a great year. Next year might not be a great year. The year before wasn't a great year. But now I'm categorized in, I'm being hit from here and here. I got someone hitting me in my head, someone hitting me in my leg, someone hitting me in my stomach. This has, I hope 2024 works out for us. Thank you.
Any other comment? Gerald, do you want to respond to anything before I go any further from Kern County to John's comment?
No further comment.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, any other board members in the Kern County for comments? Okay, let me bring it back here to the central. Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Okay, just to clarify one thing for me. On the DMV compliance verification page, it talks about Senate Bill 1, it says the DMV will deny registration, renewal, or transfer to diesel fueled vehicles that are not in compliance with the regulation. But then in your actual regulation on the page that says final deadline, January 1, 2023, it says to qualify for remaining flexibility options, you can opt into the option within 30 days of a vehicle purchase. I see that this, how are you going to be able to do a vehicle purchase if the vehicle wasn't already in compliance? Then you're not going to be able to sell it or buy it and get in and then opt in to get into compliance. Am I getting something wrong here, or am I actually seeing a problem, or am I just not seeing what's really happening?
No, that's a fantastic question, and thank you for asking that. We have a direct line with DMV from the Air Resources Board, and we can look into DMV's database. And when someone sells a non-compliant vehicle, they file the release of liability form. Once that form shows up on DMV, so the DMV will not transfer the title However, once we see that the release of liability form has been filed and the new owner is listed as, you know, on as the new owner, then we go ahead and okay that transaction, and DMV changes the title for them.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't clear on here,
Yeah.
on here, how that would happen.
That's a great question.
So, okay, so as I'm understanding it then, I buy a non-compliant vehicle, I have the 30 days to opt in. Once I opt in, then ARB will notify the DMV to go ahead and release registration and pass it on through.
Yes, but you have to work with the previous owner to make sure that the release of liability is filed with DMV. That's what we look at, is the electronic version of that through the DMV database.
Okay, at least it can happen. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brown?
Hi, Gerald. I believe that there's been some lack of communication from CARB going out to industry that's impacted and truck owners. So the Clean Truck Check program really seemed to come out of the woodwork. So I'm a designated representative for the bus and truck rule for our company, and I really didn't receive much communication at all. And you have a very easy access to all of our emails. And so the October deadline, well, the compliance period really kind of popped up, and we're not seeing it on a lot of the outreach, the emails that are coming through from CARB. And I understand that this is going to serve as a bridge between the conclusion of the bus and truck rule and what will become the advanced clean fleet rule. But you're going to need to do some serious communication with your stakeholders going out. That's imperative going forward. I was really disappointed in that. There's a number of issues. I would agree with previous comments about the advanced clean fleet rule going forward. There's a lot of ambiguity. All the fleets are so dynamic and different, and locations and different complexities, that I don't truly think that staff is ready to field all of those questions. And it's leaving businesses in a place of limbo when you're having to make budgets several years out. And so there's a lot of challenges going forward. But I think the first and foremost is you have to do outreach on this Clean Truck Check program, letting people know that if you have more than one truck over 14,000 gross vehicle weight, that you have to start registering them in this new program, and that there's going to be a fee associated with each one of these trucks. And that's going to come to a surprise to a lot of people. So, and if there's been outreach, please do let me know. But as a participant in these programs, I haven't received anything.
Thank you so much for your comments, and I will definitely let the Clean Truck Check group know that we do need that you made of your comments, and see if we can't get more information out there to the affected communities.
Any other CAC member comments? I'm going to hold off until after I go through the public process. So Gerald, if you could hold on a little more, we're going to go through now. Is there any comments in the public in the north?
There's no public comment in the north.
Great, thank you. Let's go to the south, the public comment.
No members of the public in the south.
Okay, and this is on item number 9. What about, let's come here to Central. Any public comment at this time?
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this side?
How about on Zoom or?
No indication of online comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Gerald, there is a couple things I think in this rule. The environmental justice communities. In the San Joaquin Valley, we have 47 communities of populations of 25, 27,000, 8,000, and those numbers. I've never seen a list from CARB since the beginning of 2008 bus and truck rule. And we've been heavily involved in that discussion because of agriculture. Excuse me. If the board would please bear with me for a few minutes on all three areas. This has become a very important part. At no one time have I ever heard CARB talk about environmental justice community, the people that live in that community that provide to their families. And their families are there where they went from the field, where they went from a packing house, had the great opportunity to advance. When they worked in the fields, they saved a lot of money between the families. We're able to then purchase a truck, a 2000, a 1999, a 2003, 400, 500, 600,000 miles on that truck. More of the cleaner trucks. There has never been any discussion with those truckers in those rural communities other than the science and facts that you've given on what health impacts it has done to those communities. And I understand that is very important. But so is the health and welfare of a family person providing for their family, that everybody that's on this Zoom, everybody that's in this appearance, everybody that's before the three offices, everybody at CARB in the EPA Taj Mahal building, you get paid every week. You don't have to worry about January 1 of 24. You've now been stripped of your only money and income that you make for your families. And you had the greatest opportunity to grow up the ladder. And nowhere has there been any comment ever made to sit with these people, these operators. Not talking about King City even, imagine what's happening to Gonzales, any of those places. But what have we done for those people? We have done nothing. And I'm going to be very careful how I described your funding program. It is the worst, if I can use such a word, funding program and inconsiderate of the banking world that you folks dealt with to those people. There was a meeting held in this conference room, in this boardroom several years ago, where truckers absolutely came and said, we cannot get any funding from the bank because they are a single operator. I've never seen a number other than what I've gathered from DMV, and it is very difficult. DMV is very difficult. There are approximately 16,000 independent truckers under 3 trucks in a family in a community. Statewide, in these rural communities, 322,000 trucks statewide that are all going to come crashing down. But the part that bothers me, Gerald, and this is not you, there was no consideration at all of what is this going to do to these people. And to tell any one of these people to go out and buy a $500,000 electric, where 3 weeks ago, I got an email from the Port of Long Beach. An electric truck, $580,000 electric truck caught fire. That truck burnt for 5 days. At the port, they had it out, came back. It had it out, it came back. That's okay. I guess we don't have to worry about the smoke that it created from the lithium battery and all the other discussions. That's okay. That doesn't impact health at all. This has been an issue for me from day one of 2008. There was no consideration of these rural community people. Yes, environmental justice you use very loosely and very openly. But what about the drivers? What about those families that come January, they got nothing? I met with 2 truck workers. They could not get their renewals at all. They renewed in October of this year. They did not get it. They said that you are expired, you will not get a new renewal. They've been in the business about 12 years. Their response, my response was, you have to go provide for your family. Yeah, we have 4 kids, one has 7 kids. Dedicated farm workers, farm community. And is there nowhere in any ARB comments by the chair, by the board, on what that impact has done to those families? And for somebody to say we can send them to school to go get a new job, that's pretty sad, pretty sad. I am very disappointed. I will make one comment. The San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. You folks, Samir and your team, have done one hell of a job in providing funding incentives to everybody you can, even with the fireplace rule. Tune up, tune out. There's never been a program by CARB how to deal with this problem that is hit and is going to hurt 16,000 in the valley. And these are hardworking families. These are not people that are slumming or whatever problems they have in the communities. No, these are hardworking people. And yet there's not been any passion of concern for what is happening and is going to happen. And so that's my comment to you. You can't do a thing about it. But the frustration that you've heard from some of the members of the CARB, of the CAC, but to see those 2 workers come to my office and for me to tell them, you have to sell your truck out of state. That's the only way you're going to get away getting it, rather than junking it. You probably get $4,000 or $5,000 versus taking it to a junkyard. They put all of their time and effort in repairing tires and keeping that truck running. And yes, air quality is important. Human health is important. There's no doubt. But so is the people that live in those communities, because now they don't have a job and they worry about how do they pay their bills. And some other things go along with those processes in those communities. So again, I apologize to the board, the entire CAC members, and the staff for my rant and raving, but it's a very serious issue before us. This district can't do anything, but you've done a hell of a job with what monies you have gathered. And apparently the California State Air Resources Board does not have a concern for those people. And that's 322,000 trucks total wide, 16,000 trucks in the valley. And most of them are one truckers. You go to Del Rey, you go to Sanger, you go to Rossi Cutler, you go to Mendota, you go to Wasco. And what do you see in those communities? Trucks, 2-axle, 3-axle tractor trucks. Again, I will be quiet, and I will, at this time, I think I've asked the public, correct? Okay, so Gerald,
Chairman,
thanks
Chairman,
for your time.
Chairman. This
Yes.
is Ben Cantu from the north. I just want to say that your comments are dead on. Amen to you. But I would like to ask CARB to give us an official response to every CAC member on that particular subject. You know, you're absolutely right. I've worked in government for almost 50 years, and there is no heart, there is no soul, there's no consideration for the average person. It's easy to sit at the top of the hill and dictate without consideration for those beneath. So I'd like an official response from CARB on this particular subject. Thank you.
Gerald, if you'll just forward that comment to your supervisor. I don't know who that is now, being that you guys have had some major changes in the bus and truck. I don't know if it's Michael Benjamin or if it's Lucina or whoever it is, or if it's Edie Chan, I don't know. But if you can forward that gentleman, the board members' comments, I would appreciate that as well. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Again, let's go. I don't see any other lights. Let's go to item number 10. Everybody is able to stay with us until 12 because we have 2 action items, number 11 and number 12. So that in case somebody has to leave, I'm going to move item 10 after item 12 so that I can have 11 and 12 come forward, which will be Morgan Lambert, just in case some of you have to leave, because I know it's getting close. So, and again, I apologize for taking so much time this morning on this issue. But if it's okay, I'm going to have Morgan proceed on item number 11, recommending for the CA subcommittee for hearing board appointments. Morgan, please, on that item.
Excuse me, through the chair. I
Yes.
just wanted to put on record that Ms. Agers has been in attendance. She had stepped out of the room when we took roll, but she has been here
Okay, super.
in
Okay.
Modesto.
But we
Thank
can
you.
go ahead though, right? Okay, all right. So, Morgan, Samir, are you okay with that? Okay, good, thank you. So Morgan, let's, item number 11.
All right, thank you. Morgan Lambert, Deputy Air Pollution Control Officer here at the district. Just by way of a very quick background, because I know we have some new members, consistent with state law, the district has 3 regional hearing boards who hear various petitions for potentially variances from district rules, as well as permit appeals and other related matters. By statute, each of those boards has to have 5 members from differing categories: medical doctor, an attorney, a professional engineer, and some public members. We currently have a few vacancies across those regional bodies, and one of the charges for this group by our governing board is to evaluate potential new hearing board applicants and submit recommendations to the governing board for consideration. So back in August, your body appointed a subcommittee for considering some hearing board appointments. That was made up of Mr. Williams, Mr. Cunha, Mr. Cantu, Mr. Cryer, Ms. Austin Tibbetts, and Ms. Dimming. That subcommittee has met and conducted interviews of the candidates and has recommended the 6 members that are included in your board packet be approved by the entire CAC today to move forward for final consideration and potential appointment by the governing board to the regional hearing board. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Question for Samir and Morgan. Do we, everybody has those names of who, I think in your packets, is that correct? All the names are.
It's in the pack. I could read over those.
Would you mind doing that, please, just to help everybody so they don't have to thumb through it?
I don't have it.
I didn't see it.
I don't have it.
You don't have it?
I mean, I know who they are because
It went out in the email. I don't, it was missed in printing this morning. Sorry about that.
So we don't have it in the packet?
you could just go ahead and have it read out.
Oh,
Read it.
okay. So Morgan and Samir, let's go ahead forward. Please read for each of the different 3 offices of who, in what categories they are. That would be great. And that way everybody kind of knows.
Yeah, so I'll just go down the list that we have here. Mr. Anthony Hill would be the recommendation to the Northern Region Primary Attorney member. Mr. Bruce Backhart, MD for the Northern Region Medical Member Primary. Ms. Shannon Miller, Southern Region Attorney Member Alternate position. Corey Weber, Southern Region Public Member Primary. Caitlin Hoosley, Southern Region Public Member Alternate. And this is going to be the hardest one. Sintayu Yurgo, Southern Region Public Member Alternate.
Before we go to the, Samir, any comment before I leave out of that? Okay. All right, let's go to the north on the CAC board members. Any comments for Morgan on those recommendations that came from the subcommittee? Okay, seeing none or hearing none, let's go to the south. Any comments for Morgan on this item? This is item number 11, and that is an action item. Okay, let's come, nothing in the south. Okay, let's bring it back here to the central.
I got something.
Please, go ahead.
I move for approval. Let's move on.
Second.
Okay, but I have a process under the Brown Act we have to follow, gentlemen and ladies. So let me get through that, Mr. Clark, and we'll go right through this, young man. Okay, I promise. I promise. Okay, let's bring it here to the central. Any CAC comments? Okay, great. Hearing none, let's go to the public in the north. Any comments?
No public comment in the north.
Great, thank you. Let's bring it to the south. Public comment.
No public comment in the south.
Okay, let's bring it here to the central. Any public comment on item number 11?
Do we have any members of the public present to comment on this side? Seeing none, and then online.
Okay, great. So at this time, I'll bring it back to the chair, and we have a motion by Mr. Clark to approve the recommendations from the subcommittee, and Mr. Williams seconded. Okay, would you call?
Certainly. Mr. Cunha?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hofstall?
Yes.
Mr. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts?
Yes.
Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Yes.
Ms. Nebaker?
Yes.
Ms. Agers?
Yes.
Mr. Cryer?
Yes.
Ms. Morrow?
Yes.
Mr. Troost?
Yes.
Mr. Cantu?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
To the chair, motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Let's go to item number 12. Morgan, the appointment. Oh,
I'm sorry, who did I miss? Mr. Liba, I'm so sorry.
oh.
Could I get your vote?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. I apologize.
Thank you, Ms. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Okay, so we got his vote though, right? Okay, all right, let's go to item number 12, appointment to the Environmental Representative on Environmental Justice Advisory Group. Morgan, please, and this is an action item number 12.
Yes, similar, kind of the last item, we also have at the district an environmental justice advisory group that advises the board on matters as well, a little bit different focus than the CAC. But on that group, the makeup of that group also includes up to 6 different members from the CAC to serve on there, a primary and an alternate from each of the 3 interest groups that make up CAC. Currently, the terms for the CAC Environmental Interest Group representatives on EJAG, they're expiring at the end of this month, and so we need to hopefully adopt and forward a recommendation to the governing board for appointments. Right now, as we sit, Mr. Liba has been the primary representative for CAC on EJAG since October of 21, I believe, and Ms. Austin Tibbetts has been the alternate in that role. We have talked to Mr. Liba, and I'll let him speak for himself, but I think he is potentially open to continuing along his role on that group if the group sees fit. And I believe Ms. Austin Tibbetts is perhaps has a lot going on right now, so maybe would prefer to step down from that role. So with that, Mr. Chair, I will turn it back over to you to seek perhaps volunteers and then maybe an action by the group.
All right, great. Let me go to the north. CAC members, any comments for Morgan on this issue on environmental justice on the environmental side? As he stated clearly.
Ned Leva, I'll do whatever the committee wants. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ned. Thank you. Any other member in the north? All right, let me bring it to the south. Any comments in the south? Okay, let me bring it back here to the central CAC members.
I just wanted to add that I've been on the EJAG since basically the beginning. And again, it only meets every other month. And if Ned is willing to continue as the primary, we're looking for an alternate. It doesn't have to be anybody from this area. They hold the meetings just like they do our meetings. So you can attend in Bakersfield or in Modesto. And again, being an alternate position, I would encourage anybody from the environmental group to please step up and volunteer to do this. You probably will never have to show up because Ned, I don't think has ever missed a meeting, but maybe once. But I would just encourage that. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Tibbetts, you have any comment or anything you want to So you are in your position, or you want to step down from?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, is there any of the three offices, is any one of the members of the environmental committee wish to volunteer as the alternate for Mr. Leva here in the central, the north, or the south? Is there any person that would like to volunteer?
Mr. Chairman, Ben Cantu from
Yeah.
the north, I'll volunteer.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Oh, wait a minute, he's state?
he's a city representative,
The
yeah.
city rep, okay. Has to be environmental, has to be the environmental side of the pick of the 8. So, Morgan, you were going to say something, or?
Yeah, the other option perhaps, I know because we have some newer environmental representatives that have just recently joined.
Right.
If we, if the group saw fit, they could potentially just recommend Mr. Leva continue his role as a primary. And then maybe as people get their feet underneath them on this body a little bit, come back in maybe the next meeting in December.
Bring us
and
in
we can,
December, okay.
and see if we can appoint the alternate at that point.
All right, that's very, very workable. All right, so somebody had a
Chairman?
comment? Yes, please.
John from the south, John Sanders from the south. I'm the environmental participant here. I could volunteer for that.
Yes, you could.
Yes, you can, absolutely.
You guys could think about it if you want me to play in that arena.
Well, this is an action item, so we can have a person make a motion from the CAC recommending both Mr. Lieber and yourself as the alternate, and then we'll have a vote. I mean, that's the process. So if there's somebody that would like to make a motion.
Moved.
Okay,
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Mr. Williams and a second by Ms. Tibbetts.
That Ned Leva will continue to serve as a primary and John Sanders will serve as the alternate
Okay,
on the
perfect.
Environmental Justice Advisory Group.
All right, great,
Thank
okay. All right, let's call for a vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Cunha?
Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute, wait a
sorry.
minute. Yep. Sorry, thank you. Okay, let's go to the public. At this time in the north.
No public comment in the north.
All right, great. Let's go to the southern.
No public comment in the south.
Okay, great. Let's bring it back here to central.
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none and no indication of online comments.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so now let's call for the vote. I apologize.
Okay, Mr. Cunha?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hofstall?
Yes.
Mr. Savage?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts? Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Ms. Deming?
Yes.
Ms. Nebeker?
Yes.
Mr. Leba?
Yes.
Ms. Agers?
Yes.
Mr. Cryer?
Yes.
Ms. Morrow?
Yes.
Mr. Troost?
Yes.
Mr. Cantu?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Great, thank you all very, very much for all the efforts, and to both gentlemen, Mr. Lieberman and John, both congratulations. Let's go to item number 10. Sorry for you
No,
having
that is
to
all
wait.
right. No
But you're all
worries.
ready, you're at the mic, so you're ready to go.
I'm ready, hot and ready, and I'll be
Okay.
as fast as possible. Back as promised, Emily Nealon, Program Manager of the Air Quality Planning Team, here again to provide you with a little bit more detail on some of our planning projects. So as you know, the Valley faces a number of challenges with respect to air quality, particularly due to our unique topography and meteorology, as well as a number of additional challenges, including that we're a major goods movement corridor, high population growth, pollution transport from other areas outside the Valley, as well as wildfires. And due to this, we have to go above and beyond what other regions are doing to meet our clean air targets. So through this, the governing board has adopted numerous attainment plans and control strategies, which have reduced stationary source ozone and PM forming NOx by over 90% through over 670 regulatory actions. Additionally, CARB has adopted numerous mobile source control strategies, and this combined effort represents the nation's toughest emissions control program. We also operate strong incentive programs with over $5.7 billion in public and private investment. And through these efforts, we've continued to see improvements with respect to air quality. And that is depicted here on the slide with respect to PM 2.5. As you can see, in 2002-2003 time period, we had just 61% of days meeting the PM 2.5 standard during the winter months. And then in most recent years, we have over 93% of days now meeting the standard during those months. Similarly, we've seen a lot of improvements with respect to ozone levels here in the Valley, with over 82% of days during the May through October ozone season now meeting the latest ozone standard, with the vast majority of days meeting the 1997 and 2008 8-hour ozone standards. And you can see that improvement on the heat maps that are shown on the slide. This has only been possible through the investments made by industries to install the cleanest technologies available. You can see a number of actions here on the slide adopted over recent years. We have a couple of rule projects that I touched on earlier that we are currently working on, which will further contribute to these clean air improvements. So EPA has approved some of our submittals that we've transmitted to them, particularly for our planning efforts. They found that we were in attainment of the 1997 24-hour PM 2.5 standard. They've also approved numerous plans with respect to the PM 2.5 standards for the 1997, 2006, and 2012 standards. They also found that we met the clean boiler fuel requirement for the 2015 8-hour ozone standard. And they've also approved a number of rule submittals that we have submitted over the past few years. With that said, there are a number of actions that are still awaiting EPA action. And timely action is needed in order to avoid Clean Air Act consequences and protect public health here in the Valley. We currently do have sanctions clocks running as a result of EPA disapproval for PM 2.5 and ozone contingency measures. And this is particularly due to adverse court decisions related to EPA actions that cause them to then disapprove our submittals. So we do have clocks running for that. And we have a number of key actions coming up for ozone and PM 2.5 contingency measures, as well as submittals that we're putting together for the revised plan for the 2012 PM 2.5 standard. Specifically for contingency measures, as I mentioned, EPA has disapproved a number of our measures in light of recent adverse court decisions against EPA. And this is an issue for non-attainment areas throughout the country. To help areas in addressing this issue, in March, EPA issued draft guidance at the urging of the district as well as other agencies. Most recently, the district and CARB adopted our contingency step revision in May in consultation with EPA, which included a number of things. First is a demonstration that the district and CARB are implementing the most stringent measures feasible and that there's limited opportunities for contingency measures. We also adopted amendments to Rule 4901, which is our wood burning fireplaces rule, and Rule 8051, which happened most recently at our last governing board meeting, to include contingency provisions. And CARB is also currently developing a California smog check contingency measure, which will be statewide, and they'll be taking that to their board in October. On the federal side, EPA published their proposed PM 2.5 contingency federal implementation plan on August 8th, and their proposed measures in that plan are generally consistent with what the district has submitted. So with that submittal, we are planning to avoid a final federal implementation plan. With regard to our updated plan for the 2012 PM 2.5 standard, the district and CARB are developing the plan in response to EPA reversal of their prior proposed approval. And the plan was originally submitted as part of the 2018 PM 2.5 plan, which is well ahead of the 2023 timeline. We do have a public hearing scheduled for this upcoming hearing in October for initial SIP elements, which includes our updated emissions inventory for this plan, our precursor demonstration, and our best available control measure evaluation. And this analysis demonstrates the stringency of both the district and CARB's rules and regulations. With that, we are also continuing to develop our remaining elements of the plan, which will include our attainment strategy. So both the district and CARB are continuing to evaluate additional emission reduction opportunities, as well as advocating for reductions from the federal sources. We're also conducting extensive modeling, which will support our attainment strategy in the plan. So as I mentioned, the plan development is ongoing. We'll be holding additional public workshops in the coming months. We have held 3 workshops already, so the public process will continue through 2023. With that, as I mentioned, we will be advocating for federal action and support in our attainment efforts, particularly for this plan, but also in moving forward, given the fact that the district and CARB are implementing the most stringent measures feasible. And particularly, we're advocating for reductions from interstate trucks, locomotives, and aircraft. We're also advocating for funding to be given to the Valley under the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law, particularly due to our attainment challenges, as well as our high level of disadvantaged communities here in the Valley. So as I mentioned, not only is this important for this plan, but also moving forward as EPA is currently evaluating a potential new PM 2.5 standard, which could be finalized this year. And lastly, just wanted to note that we have demonstrated attainment of a number of standards, including PM 10, 1-hour ozone, and the 1997 24-hour PM 2.5 standards. And we've received clean data findings from EPA, so they found that we were in attainment of the standards. We are anticipating clean data findings for the 1997 8-hour ozone standard and the 1997 annual PM 2.5 standard. And we are conducting additional analyses and including exceptional event documentation to support EPA action on these standards. And lastly, we are developing a number of maintenance plans to demonstrate continued compliance with the standards that we have attained. We did submit most recently our maintenance plan for the revoked 1-hour ozone standard in June, and we are developing maintenance plans for both PM 10 and the 1997 24-hour PM 2.5 standard. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I know that was a lot of information, but I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Did it in about 7-8 minutes. And we've spent decades. I don't know how you can do that so calmly and so not a miss of, thank you. So at this time, I'm going to see if there's any comment by Samir before I go to the board. If you have any comment that you want to make on this item.
I would just, maybe an observation, Emily did a good job calmly laying out, the various SIP issues. With the recent news around the federal government, shutdown, potential no longer shutdown for a 45-day period, and we'll see what happens. That's all very important because, EPA is working on reviewing a number of submissions, not only for us, but others as well. So with there not being a shutdown, that review continues, but just wanted to note that was another interesting, in an already very challenging environment, that was just another challenge to potentially deal with, because a lot of this is very time sensitive as far as EPA's review goes on various submissions.
Thank you, Samir. Okay, at this time, I'll go to the north.
This is Ned Leva. Just a very quick comment or question, if you can hear me. It certainly seems like we've achieved almost uniformly the 12 microgram per meter cubed PM 2.5 goal, almost throughout our entire area. So it seems like we've made a lot of progress. And then, we went through that SIP, and it looks like we're going to have to go through it again. What are we really facing in terms of, I read those court cases, what are we really facing in terms of increasing exactitude unless the new standards have not been adopted to reduce it beyond 12 micrograms per meter cubed? I guess I just need a little update on that.
I'll take a stab at it, Mr. Chair, and if Emily wants to add anything to it, please feel free. Great question, Mr. Leva. So the issue generally, and this for the benefit also maybe some of the newer members as well, the issue with reaching what we call attainment, or basically meeting the standard under the Federal Clean Air Act, is that you ultimately have to bring the entire air basin, the entire San Joaquin Valley, into meeting the standard. And so often what will happen, I think this is what you're alluding to, Mr. Leva, is that the vast majority of locations in the valley may need a standard, but it's going to be those last, most difficult, sort of locations that often will drive, the time frame, by which the region will meet the standard. So there are some locations throughout the valley that do still have, some challenge with meeting the standard. Bakersfield, for example, is one of the, there's one or two sites there that, even though progress is being made, will continue to be higher on the PM2. There's a persistency at those sites. So I think that is something to always keep in mind as you think about these issues, and that's why it's very important as we communicate air quality progress, that it's also important to look at other metrics, population exposure reduction, the vast, very significant increases that you're seeing across the valley, but still with a recognition that there's still going to be some difficulties here and there in terms of some of the specific locations that are going to drive that timeline. And then to your point, there is a new standard that is being considered by EPA for PM 2.5. Emily mentioned that briefly, that we're hearing, will be adopted by the end of this year. It's a new annual standard, so that currently it's at 12 micrograms. And there's consideration for anywhere from the 8 to 11 microgram range for in terms of lowering that standard, which will, once again, it's driven by the health research that's been conducted. It's an extensive federal process that EPA goes through, but it's a big range actually in terms of what that standard could ultimately end up being set at. And so that would be, we're already facing, quite a bit of difficulty in meeting the 12 microgram standard, which this new plan or updated plan will address. That newer standard obviously will be very difficult to meet. So that is something that we're watching very closely. There'll be a new time frame also established, assuming that EPA adopts a new standard. It hasn't come out yet, and we don't know what that standard will be. But assuming that they do adopt a new standard, or in the event that they do, there's a whole process that happens to a region in terms of what's called classification. Basically EPA determines what level of challenge a region has, and then that determination ultimately results in a deadline for a plan and a deadline for ultimately meeting the standard down the road. And for PM 2.5, it's not a long time that you get under the Clean Air Act. It's actually a pretty fast time frame, which is one of the challenges that the San Joaquin Valley faces, just because of our unique challenges that we have here. So there will be a lot more conversation down the road here in the event that EPA does adopt a new standard. And I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Leva, but just wanted to
No, thank you very much, because I haven't, if you can hear me, I haven't looked at the latest SIP, because it seems like you have done such a wonderful job. And I think the entire CAC should know that there's a lot of compliance here, and we're pretty close to almost uniformly meeting the 12 microgram per meter cube standard. So I just think we need to put things in perspective. And if there comes through from the CSAC or whoever, standards that say it should drop to 11 micrograms per meter cubed or 10 or 9, you got to show the health effects for a 1 or 2 or 3 microgram per meter cubed reduction against the cost. And that has not ever been done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the CAC in the north of Emily's comments or Samir's? Seeing none, let's go to the south. Members in the south, any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's Les Clark.
Please.
Turn back the page on contingency measures. In your slide that you presented, go down to the last bullet point. EPA proposed the PM 2.5 Contingency Federal Implementation Plan, FIP. And yet, as I read through this under contingency measures, which that's a different meaning to a lot of people, but EPA and the Air Resources Board both worked preparing a regulation. Now EPAs are threatening a FIP. Do you know what a FIP does to your whole program? I don't know that most of you people do. I mean, that takes care of a lot of things that we can't do because it shuts down our ability to get permits and all the above. So I'm not, the general statement is saying generally consistent with the district submittal. I'm not quite sure I buy into that. And I think that's something the staff should keep a real close eye on as far as the FIP. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm happy to reach out to Mr. Clark and kind of catch him up on the various extensive discussions that have been happening this past year about the FIP, the various board meetings, the CAC updates and all that. I'll be happy to reach out and just make sure, you know, this has been on the agenda for a number of times, and there's been quite a story this last year over how to resolve those issues.
10-minute warning.
Didn't you tell everybody to shut off their phones?
I did, but somehow this thing.
I have a question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Bakersfield was mentioned earlier that it had some issues with not quite meeting some of the standards, if I'm correct. But could some of that, I know I see 7% reduction in PM 2.5, but in our county, we have that little bowl there, and a lot of the pollutants that come from, say, from San Francisco and other areas migrate to our area. How much of that is causing us not meeting the standard in our area, coming from other areas, coming or transplanting to Bakersfield, and what can we do? We're doing what we can here, but could there be standards set in those areas there to help us on this end of the world?
Through the chair, a great question, Mr. Cryer. So you're right. There's a complexity to many of our locations. By the way, Bakersfield is an example of one of the peak sites. There's a few others, so it's not limited just to Bakersfield. Just to be clear, we've seen those levels be elevated at times. A couple of other locations, and we can update you on that as we keep talking about the new plan and, you know, some of the sort of what the challenges are, and we're going to definitely share more information with you on that. But in Bakersfield in particular, there's some unique things that we believe are going on there. One of the key sites, for example, is located at the municipal airport. It's actually a state air monitoring is run by CARB, and there's a lot of recognition by both us and CARB. We're going through a public discussion around that particular location just because of it's where it's at and some of the unique activities that kind of happen around it. There's a helicopter landing pad actually right adjacent to the particular location. So there's, but you're right, in Bakersfield in general, there are some challenges. You know, it's not there. So as you think about the valley and as emissions kind of work their way also from north to south, you know, I think Bakersfield can get impacted, you know, often even within the valley by emissions that don't occur necessarily within Bakersfield. That's one of the things that. So when we talk about planning, for example, and we think about, you know, even if there are a few locations that have the most difficulty, it does help for the entire region to be thinking about this, because often, say, the southern part of the valley may be impacted by, you know, by some of the emissions that may come from other parts of the valley as well. So that's something that we definitely talk quite a bit about as these plans are being developed. And then, of course, like you mentioned, there's some unique meteorology, you know, that can happen depending on where that site is located, and, you know, things like that we do certainly want to take into account. So that's why I think as you hear more about the plan as well, and where those remaining challenges are and what types of measures may be most effective at reducing some of those concentrations, you know, it's really important to follow the science on this and to make sure that you're looking at, you know, where things are coming from, how emissions move around, and what's going to be most beneficial to actually reducing those concentrations, and not just a broad brush, you know, sort of an approach. So I just want to acknowledge that you're right, that there are some unique issues that definitely go into the thought process behind these plans.
Okay, any other comments from the board in the south? Seeing none, let's move it to the central, please.
Yeah, my question was similar to the one just asked, and that is, isn't it true that some of that pollution that ends up in the valley here actually originates in Southeast Asia, namely China?
Mr. Chair, just definitely looking with an eye towards you for how much room you want to respond quickly to the great question. So the valley is impacted by a variety of sources. There is what's called transport pollution that does work its way into not only the valley, but also many parts of the western United States can be impacted by that pollution. it's another term for it's transboundary pollution. There's been a lot of documentation. EPA itself recognizes that there is certainly ozone is, as I would say, has been a little bit better documented than particulates, but even particulates, there are some potential impacts, especially as the economy has grown at significant rates, not only in China, but other parts of Eastern Asia. Some of that pollution can work its way high elevations and then ultimately precipitate its way down onto the ground level. And so there are other states also that are really interested. We're following that science to see how it, could be used to ultimately help us understand the air quality challenge here. There's also within the state, we can be impacted by, say, pollution in the Bay Area. There's documentation around that as well. Ultimately, I would say overall, the majority of our impact is still probably sort of here within the central part of the valley. And the impact, say, from the Bay Area reduces. It's most impactful in the northern part of the valley, and then as you work your way down the valley, it's a lesser of an impact just because, just because of meteorology and the nature of transport. So overall, I think it's really important that we understand that we work on all these various facets of what's happening to the valley. We've been really focused on working, bringing funding into the region because we've obviously adopted a lot of regulation, as Emily outlined. But if we're talking about major fleet transitions, that's not going to happen without a lot of support, a lot of conversation earlier about the issues there. Everything from whether it's a trucking fleet to locomotives and other categories is looking to partner to try to really accelerate those reductions, because most of our emissions that are in the valley now are actually from mobile sources that are under state and federal control. We don't have really any jurisdiction over those sources, and you're not going to really get fast reductions without some kind of incentive-based strategy to these regulations are only going to do so much, and a lot of the feasibility issues as were outlined earlier. So I don't know, that's a long-winded way of basically saying, yes, there is impact that comes across the ocean. We're doing the best we can to follow that science, but we're really focused on really trying to reduce emissions here if we can.
I just leave you with the question of, is it possible that we're punishing the wrong people?
I think, well, I'll just speak for our agency in that everything we try to do, we try to ground it in science. We try to understand, what the inventory of those emissions are, and then really try to follow, does it ultimately provide a benefit in terms of air quality? So a couple of examples that Emily raised earlier for contingency, for example, we're focused on residential wood burning and fugitive dust, two categories that we do work very closely with either residents or farmers and others on trying to reduce those emissions. They've been documented to, there are feasible things that can be done, and we try to pursue those. They're not always easy, but there's certainly things that, I guess there could be, punishment is probably one word that does come to mind at times, depending on where you are in the grand scheme of things. But I think that everything we try to do it through strong outreach, try to back it with incentives where we can, and really just try to highlight, and focus on things that are feasible within the valley. And I can't speak for any other agencies. I think there's some complexity, I think, to that question that even today was quite a bit of discussion around that.
Okay, any other from the central here? Okay, let's go to the public. In the north, any comments?
No public comment in the north.
Okay, let's bring it to the south. Any public comment?
No public comment in the south.
Great. Let's bring it back here to the central. Any public comment?
Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing none in person or online.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's go right to item 13. I think we can make it through that in a few minutes, I believe, so we can go through that. And that'll be done by Stephanie and by Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, Chair and committee members. My name is Stephanie Ng, and I'm a program manager in our Community Strategies and Resources Department. And this is the department that oversees the implementation of our AB 617 program. And today I will be providing updates since our last CAC meeting. I think as most folks know, we are undergoing CERP, or Community Emissions Reduction Programs implementation in all 4 of our Valley AB 617 communities. Today, I'm just bringing to you a few exciting updates that we have. The first 2 of our really highly popular and prioritized program from community members in all 4 of our AB 617 communities, our passenger vehicle repair and replacement programs, were approved by CARB and our district governing board. This month, we are working with the community steering committees as well as our implementing partners, Valley CAN, to discuss and receive recommendations on program outreach and implementation. And we'll look to open up these programs later this month for residents to apply to. 2 other highly prioritized CERT measures, our urban greening and vegetative barrier measures, are moving forward in the communities as well. In South Central Fresno, the selected contractor for both of these measures, Tree Fresno, and their project partner, the Central California Environmental Justice Network, or CCEJN, they kicked off an Adopt a Tree program on October 1st, where residents in the Fresno AB 617 boundary can adopt a 5-gallon drought-tolerant tree, and it comes with information on how to care for the plant and resources for it as well. This program is going to run until May of next year, and we're really excited for this program to kick off and support our Fresno AB 617 community. And we are working on finalizing proposals for both of those measures, again, urban greening and vegetative barriers, in both our Shafter and Stockton communities as well. In 3 of our AB 617 communities of Fresno, Shafter, and Stockton, we do have our Clean Air Rooms program running. So again, this is a program to give away free air purifiers to residents in our AB 617 communities. We're continuing to work with our outreach and communications team and the CSCs to spread word of the program and to get residents signed up. In August, our district governing board approved the project plan to provide incentives to replace older public fleet vehicles with new clean technology. And this is in our communities of Fresno, Arvin-Lamont, and Shafter. And we'll continue to conduct outreach to public agencies to be able to take advantage of this funding. And finally, we have exciting news from our newest community of Arvin-Lamont in the South Kern area. We just deployed an air monitoring trailer at the Arvin Community Services District, and it's currently reporting real-time air quality data for community members to access. So those are all the updates I have for you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, Emily, I think what we'll do is we'll go right to ARB, and then we'll stay right where you are, and then we'll come back and we'll do both of you. Okay, Brian, ARB.
Hi, thanks everyone. I'm Brian Moore, and I'm one of the managers in the Office of Community Air Protection at CARB, and our main charge is kind of implementing this program at the state level. So we're also really excited with all the progress the Valley has made and all the communities in the program. And I just had an update from like kind of a higher level where we have now posted the final draft of our revised guidance document. So the document that provides guidance to air districts and other stakeholders for implementing the program is in final draft form, and that final draft will be reviewed by our CARB board on October 26th. So I actually submitted, I emailed Stephanie a link to the final draft document so you all can take a look at it, along with the meeting notice and a public comment submittal link. So if you want to make any public comments on the final draft, we have till October 26th, as well as testifying at the actual board meeting as well, is also an opportunity. And if any of you have any questions or want to supply comments directly to me, you're free to email me, and Stephanie and Air District staff have my contact information. Yep, and that's all from my end.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Brian. Can we make sure that all of the CAC members get a copy of that information that Brian spoke about for the meeting on the 26th? All right, let me open it up to the CAC members in the north. Any comments of Emily and Brian? Hearing none, let's go to the south. Any comments on item number 13 for
Chairman?
Brian or Emily? Yes, please.
Quick question from
Yes, sir.
Stephanie. On the portable trailer that you guys have moved out there, how how do we get a copy of whatever is going on the monitoring station? Is that done through your San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, or is just public information out there that, which will be public too, but of course, but how's that interpreted and what's the quality assurance on the trailer?
Yeah, and thanks for that question. And as part of this program, all 4 of our communities also have a component of community air monitoring. In all of our websites, we do have real-time live data reporting there. And so I'm happy in the resources that Brian mentioned kind of regarding the blueprint. In addition to that, I'm happy to share the links for all of these community air monitoring websites for you all to take a look at.
If I could just add, Mr. Chair,
Please,
to Les's question. Yeah, so this particular air monitoring that Stephanie's talking about is conducted by district staff with district equipment, you know, so there, and it's high grade data. So there is quality assurance, and it's, as far as, you know, it's basically provided real time. So it's very similar to perhaps some of the ozone or PM data that you may see from, you know, one of the regulatory sites. It's not regulatory monitoring, so it's not at that level, but it is, you know, is basically what we call community monitoring that's done by district staff. So just to clarify that point also for you, Les. But there is a link. It's available on the webpage in real time, and you can. There's also ongoing. One more piece. I know time is short here, but to make sure Les gets the full. From time to time, at the community steering committees, at the community steering committee meetings, there will be a sharing of you know, some of the information and, you know, observations and some discussion around it. So that does happen on a fairly regular basis, in addition to just having it available real time. And those little reports are posted on the same page, you know, as that data kind of gets collected over time. And it's like a 1-pager kind of summary, and those are pretty useful too, as you want to just, if you want to keep tracking kind of what's going on.
Thank you.
Any other members in the South, board members, comments? If not, let me bring it back here to the Central. Samir, maybe we can have a presentation, maybe again, how long has it been operating with the trailer?
I believe the trailer has just been operating for about not for very long, maybe a week or so.
Maybe in January, February, Samir, maybe we could have a report and see what things we're seeing. Would that be okay to do? Probably for the CAC. I think if we can have Stephanie something come to this CAC in January or February, because it'll give you about a month, 2 months, 3 months worth of information to figure out. And I appreciate that it's being run by the district and not by anybody else but the district in the regular monitoring team that you have. So that's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that can be integrated into the 617 reports, and any other community or monitoring, you know, like timely updates can just be a part of that, just to hit on that point a bit more.
Yeah, super. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Let me go to the public in the North. Any public comments for Emily?
No public comments.
Or Brian? Okay, what about the South?
No
public comment
in the South.
All right, great. Let me bring it back here to the Central. Public comment for
Do we
Brian.
have any members of the public in the central office that would like to comment? Seeing none, or no online comments.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The last item here before I go to the board is the outreach and communications, item 14. Jamie Holt. Thank you.
Fantastic. Much of the work that we've been doing was mentioned by Samir earlier at the beginning of the meeting, and I know that everyone is ready to get to lunch. So just 2 quick things to mention. We've been doing quite a bit of school outreach. We have a team of folks that are there during morning drop-off and afternoon pickup. We've been giving out a variety of information about our school program, our many grant programs, about wildfire season coming up, and how parents and teachers can get more involved in what their district does. We also, it's wildfire season, even though it hasn't really felt like it, but thankfully, knock on wood. But we have been doing quite a bit of outreach, and we are prepared. We did have a little bit of smoke that came into the valley a couple of weeks ago, and we're ready for any additional wildfire issues that may come up. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Any member in the board in the CAC in the North, questions for Jamie? Hearing none, let's go to the south. Board members in the south, any questions for Jamie Holt? Okay, let's bring it back here to the central. Any comments? Okay, let's go to the public in the north.
No public comment in the north.
Great, let's go to the south.
No public comment in the south.
Great, let's bring it back here to the central. Any public comment at this time?
Are there any members of the public that would like to comment? Seeing none, and there's no indication of online comments.
Okay, great. Let me go to item number 15, CAC comments in the north. Any member of the CAC board comments at this time that you would like to see, or things brought up in December, et cetera, et cetera? Hearing none, let me go to the south. Any comments from members of the CAC?
I do have a comment.
Please.
Maybe more a statement, but, you know, science is not absolute. You know, as we do discoveries and stuff, things changes. For a few examples is, at one time, people thought that the world was flat.
Some still do.
They also thought that the world, that the sun revolved around the earth. But there's a lot of different comments, but as we progress in science, and I believe in science, but it changes. There's a lot of things that come up that that new discovery and stuff that affects what we're doing and thinking. It's just like most recently, you know, this might be a little political, but you know, Fauci said that if you get the shot, you won't get the COVID. Well, I found out that you get COVID, but it's a small side effect, you know, people can live with, and that masks will solve getting COVID if you wear a mask, and they found that didn't work. But you know, science evolves and we learn from it, but it's up to a person to make up that decision, but not a government board or anything to make it up for ourselves. I believe that's you know, a little more strongly that for freedom of choice to do things and make things happen. But I do believe in science. Don't say I'm negative or anything, but I think that science changes with time. You know, we need to learn from that and advance ourselves. Look where we're at now with the miracle that's going on in medicine and also in the space transportation and also in our economy. Things are getting better and better, so we learn from it. But anyway, that's my comment and just more of a statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comment in the south, CAC? Okay, let me bring it back here to the central, Mr. Williams.
Okay, so this is on and off topic. I would just like to ask that we have an action item on the agenda at the next meeting. I would like to ask that we begin our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance like the governing board does. And I would like to bring that to the group for discussion and a vote at the next meeting.
Okay, fantastic. I don't see a problem with that, I believe. Mr. Samir, any comment?
Maybe I could offer some feedback on that. I think, well, I can go back and review this a little bit closer, but just my general reaction to that would be if there was consensus amongst
Exactly.
the
I don't think we need
CAC
an
meeting
action
here,
item. Yep.
you know, it's something that we you know, if there's consensus here on that being a standing agenda item at the meeting, we can certainly add that to the agenda, you know, without necessarily the need for a vote. But on that question, I will defer back to the chair and to the committee members as to whether or not there's any feelings, maybe not supportive of that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just like any other public meeting, if somebody does not want to say the pledge, they certainly don't have to. The only reason I asked that we went ahead and formalize it with a vote is that way it would to stop doing it would take a formal vote either of the board or of the CAC. So it sort of enshrines it unless it's taken out by a formal action and not just another person later on saying, well, let's not do this anymore.
Okay, what I'm going to do is call every one of the members of the CAC between now and December. I will call every one of you, including the alternates. I don't have time, but I do have time. This is an important issue. But I think I'd like to hear people's personal thoughts about it. But absolutely, this is the United States, the greatest country in the world.
Is that okay for him to do that?
Oh,
under the Brown Act?
Oh,
Yeah, I would
Oh.
say on this issue, here's what I can do. And again, respectful of time, I just want to make, but we still have good attendance here. I can review this issue,
yeah,
just from, from a legal
talk with you about it,
perspective,
okay?
and provide some direction to the chair and the CAC, based on the potential next steps in terms of formality of having a vote on this versus perhaps just putting it on the agenda. But I'm just trying to take a temperature. It is a discussion here. It's been raised. It'd be good to know if there was any additional perspective on this, and maybe we should consider as we evaluate this, if there was any strong feelings one way or the other. Call me if you want to have a conversation some more about that. Be happy to talk individually, but again, just respectful of the Brown Act. Obviously, that conversation has to be done consistently with the Brown Act. Cannot be any side discussions going on. So I'll take a look. It'd be great to know if anybody has any strong feelings at this point to help you make that evaluation. I'll try to keep this as streamlined as possible for the CAC as far as what those next steps might be.
Okay, thank you, and I'll communicate with you. And again, I appreciate Mr. Williams' comments. And anyway, again, no comments for everybody. I want to thank everybody from the alternates to the primaries, and everybody going to the meetings and being and putting up with some of my comments sometimes. Again, I don't intend to offend anybody. But again, I appreciate everybody's patience. Yeah, we're about 20 minutes after. We violated probably the wage order rule for having a meal and a break. But that's okay. We were still able to get up and go and get a cookie or something. And so again, I want to thank the staff, Samir, everybody, and the board. And again, all of the CAC members have a great, safe week and weekends, and we'll see you, probably hope, at the study retreat, as well as we'll see you all on the first week of December for our meeting, and then we'll have certain things going out to you that we have, and making sure that you have those materials. And we definitely will send out the thing for their staff, a study agency meeting, so everybody has that at their hand. Again, thank you all very, very much. Everybody be safe and take care. The meeting is adjourned.